Good evening, folks. This is the Factivist Project, and we are on our short show. So I am going to turn this over to Dave. This is the weekly wake-up call.
All right, this one's going to be fun because I'm getting pissed off. I've been a union rep for almost 15 years, and I'm sick and tired of hearing people bash Joe Biden for blocking this rail strike. A purpose of a strike is to get people's attention. They didn't have to strike. They didn't have to, the rail workers did not have to lose wages. They got our attention. I wasn't aware of the situation. I actually wasn't even aware of how much business went through rail still. Guys, you got my attention. So that's the first thing. The second thing is what you guys want is sick time. We all want sick time. Personally, I already have sick time because of a strike back in the 1970s. Okay, so I understand the powers of the strike, but this doesn't have to happen. We need, if all of you on Twitter and Facebook and whatever else on social media and want to bash Biden, and you want sick leave, this is what you got to do. I want to show this bill real quick. It's the Healthy Families Act, which was sponsored by Patty Murray, died in the Senate. And it's going to come up again. I know it. Joe Biden has been trying to get sick leave through, the Build Back Better Act, the Healthy Families Act, all these other acts. They tried to add an amendment to the contract for the rail workers. That didn't work. And guess why? Because they didn't have enough to break the filibuster. And on top of that, you had a coal baron senator, Democrat, and Joe Manchin, who voted no because of his interest in the coal business. Let's cut the crap already. Put pressure on these people. Put pressure on your congressmen. Put pressures on your senators. It's not just Joe Biden. Stop complaining about the system. They are trying to get things done. I understand it's not as fast as you'd like it, but that's not life.
One more comment before we shut down here. You want to make this simple? I'll help you. You could have done it with the midterms. 52% of registered Democrats voted. That was it. You know what? If 90% of the Democrats voted, we'd never have to worry about any of this shit. That is also not the real world, because we know they don't vote. It's time to cut the shit. You want this to stop. You give the Democrats enough of a plurality in the Senate to override the filibuster. And then you demand that the filibuster be taken away. Those two things solve a myriad of problems and ensure that the United States remains a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, because the filibuster is basically un-American. So let's get over this shit and let's accept the fact that the American people have a responsibility in all of this too. And shut the fuck up while you're at it.
One more thing. I'm sick and tired of people questioning my loyalty to unions because, I'm defending Biden somewhat on this. I didn't like it, but I understood it. You're not going to shut down the economy for one union. He's trying to get universal leave for everybody. Okay, so he doesn't have to do this once, then twice, then three times. Do you know how many people or how many different unions are striking for the same thing? I'm with you, but let's get together on this thing and push it through a public outcry instead of just finger pointing.
Okay, gang. We'll see you later. Good evening, folks. We're back again. This is another of our weekly wake-up calls so that we can make sure we can get this all in and get it on TikTok as well as everywhere else. So here's Dave. We're going to talk about just exactly why Joe Biden is not Ronald Reagan.
So let's break this down. I understand that Joe Biden blocked the rail strike with signing of the legislation, and that people were very upset about that. And I understand it. I also this rail strike and the legislation and all the recent stuff made me do my research and made me look at all of this, and I am extremely empathetic as to how horrendous the conditions are for these guys, and I will go through that in long show. However, I understand why Joe Biden did what he did, but Joe Biden did not fire over 11,000 PATCO workers, over 11,000 air traffic controller workers for striking. He didn't do that. Ronald Reagan did that. Ronald Reagan also created a crisis within the air traffic controller community and the airline community over decades by doing that, by creating potentially hazardous skies and not trying to, ease the situation. He just fired the guys who were striking, leaving a little over 1,000, and then over time they fired a handful of the people who struck over those past years. So that created safety concerns over time. Also, on top of that, Ronald Reagan is known mostly for championing deregulation. He is probably the most libertarian president that we've had, not really, but he is the champion of deregulating the government, causing problems. The SNL crisis, for one. Okay, and there are a myriad of things. So he was let's say, an enemy of labor that way, because labor wants added regulations, safety regulations, and things of that nature. So Biden is not that.
Can I ask a question before you go on?
Yeah.
The strike, the air traffic controller strike, was illegal. Am I right?
It was illegal, yes.
Would the rail workers strike have been illegal too?
Rail workers are not covered by the National Labor Relations Board. My understanding is it would have been considered illegal, yes.
So all of those people, or not all of them, because there's a lot of them, but a lot of those people could have lost their jobs as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
As well as if the strike if Biden wouldn't have just fired them, they would have lost that pay, no doubt.
Right.
Okay. And on top of that, the rail companies may have found ways over time to have fired them anyway.
Right.
Okay. So there was a crisis averted there also. I do have lists of some of the things that Joe Biden has done, provide up to 2 weeks of medical leave for people who had COVID and who had family members who had COVID or issues with childcare. With the what is it? There are a bunch of other things. The infrastructure bill. People said, well, that's infrastructure. It created a ton of jobs. Yeah, there's just a myriad of things. He is actually considered one of the more pro-union presidents that we've had, and just in a 2-year period. I'll go over some of the stuff in the long show. One thing that I will say too is that Donald Trump, while he was still in office, decided to honor Ronald Reagan for being one of the most effective presidents because of what he did
for business. That's why.
Right, he was effective for business, and you always wonder why business booms under certain under certain Republicans? Well, because they can break the rules that are no longer there.
Right.
You know, and eventually, like with the savings and loan crisis, things come crashing down. And when do they typically crash down? During the during the administration of a Democrat, typically,
Right.
because they're trying to do the right thing. So stop comparing Joe Biden, who has, you know, through economic relief packages and you know, the stimulus package and different things, done things for the American worker, none of which would have been even considered by Reagan. Reagan wouldn't have even considered sitting at the table with the rail workers.
Correct.
He would have just strong-armed them and threatened to fire them. There's another article in here about the Hormel workers, the packing plant. That union strike failed as well. That was during the 80s, again because of strong arming. And the business boomed during the 80s. People always talk about that, how that was a heyday. Yeah, because the corporations were able to, you know, run amok. You always bitch and moan about the corporations, but you don't want the aftermath of some of the regulations sometimes. So I'm just saying, to compare, I'm upset about the fact that the rail workers didn't get leave. They were willing to go for 4. Joe Biden is he tried for a month in one bill. It almost passed. It was blocked by the Senate. Guess who blocked it? Joe Manchin.
And, you know, let's talk about this too, because frankly, the GOP didn't exactly vote in favor of them getting their time either. Did some of the GOP cross the aisle? They did on this one, surprisingly. But the fact of the matter is, not enough. And one of our own legislators chose not to support it either. You know, and that's why I keep saying Joe Manchin, he needs to fucking go. End of story.
Not only that, but I do agree that congressional representatives need to be put in check in terms of their conflicts of interest. Okay, Joe Manchin owns a coal plant. Okay, 90% of coal is transported by rail. That's a fact.
Right. And you know what? I'm just going to say this. Corporate PAC money is a problem. And I do want to say that right now, 9 of the new legislators that went down to orientation have committed to not taking any corporate PAC money. The Democratic Party is moving in the right direction in that regard. Nothing changes overnight. Nothing. No matter what anybody tries to tell you, nothing in politics changes overnight. So everything is moving in the right direction in that way. You know what? The people have a responsibility in this too. I'm tired of it being just the people bitching and moaning when they don't go out and vote, and they don't go out and do this, and they don't go out and do that, and they haven't got time to write their legislators or call their legislators on the phone. You know what? They take the lead from you. If you show no interest in it, they show no interest in it. It's as simple as that. They're supposed
If
to
you want this
for the people. If you want it, go out and get it. I'm sorry, this is part of the game.
The Healthy Families Act. It will be reintroduced. Patty Murray will probably sponsor it again. The Healthy Families Act. We will talk about it. And by the way, I have to salute to the newly ordained socialist Ted Cruz, who actually voted for this. Okay. And by the way, we take advantage of when Republicans notice something and actually vote our way. Notice that, because maybe we can use it in the future. Maybe we can push this towards a filibuster. Maybe we can, get something done. So that's what I got. Joe Biden is not Ronald Reagan. He isn't.
Not even close. We'll talk to you in the long show.